Drive-In was founded in 1933 by Richard Hollingshead. He strung a sheet across a couple trees, put a speaker in his car, and charged him for movies. Took it from there, put it in a lot, and that's how he got it growing. When drive-ins first started, they used things called blast speakers. Blast speakers were either set up on poles in front of the cars or on huge speakers on top of buildings that blasted out over the audience. And there's two problems with that. The first problem is the people that were more than 5 rows back got the audio 5-6 seconds after it happened. The other problem was that the surrounding houses and businesses complained because of the noise from the drive-in. So the in-car speakers allowed there to be more drive-ins, allowed them to, the sound was a little bit better, but most importantly, allowed people to have drive-ins and not have the neighbors complain. You would get a speaker from either the concession stand or the box office when you came in, and it was hooked up to a small propane tank, which was really safe. And you would use these heaters, and then you'd be able to watch the movie in the middle of winter. Unfortunately, it wasn't safe, and people started to get hurt, and they stopped doing it. The other way they used to do it is, you can see junction boxes on all of these poles here. They would hook up in-car speakers to the junction boxes, put them in the cars, and people would try and watch movies that way. After the war, the guys came back home, they had money, there was jobs, there was plenty of materials, there was people wanting to have a good time. People were moving out of the cities into the suburbs, so they wanted to have some kind of entertainment. The drive-in started to flourish because people were buying cars and people wanted to see movies, and they didn't want to have to take their kids to theaters and cramp up in theaters, so they went to the drive-in. If you wanted to go to the movies, you had to pay a babysitter to leave your kids at home. You could bring your kids here. Back then, it was by the carload, or kids were free. It was cheap, it was easy, the kids could fall asleep if they wanted to. The 50s, it probably hit about 4,500 to 4,800 theaters, and that's where it was at its peak. Late 70s, VCR started to pop up, and it just started to it impacted everybody. It wasn't just drive-ins, it was indoor theaters as well. Other companies came in and started making these B movies, and they were actually very popular in the 50s and early 60s, the B movies. It became known as a place to watch a lousy movie. And in the 70s and the 80s, there wasn't blockbusters coming out every week like there is now. A blockbuster would come out maybe once every summer, or twice every summer. So there wasn't that movie, that A-list movie that people would want to go to the drive-in every week to see. Some owners resorted to showing less than family material. It was just a way to try and stay alive. People lost sight of the experience of the drive-in because of what happened with the adult movies. People started to get drive-ins the reputation of not being family friendly, and drive-ins started to trail off. And they started closing. To make extra income, they used to have flea markets Saturdays and Sundays in the afternoon. They'd rent out tables, and people would set their tables up and sell their stuff. It happened all over. It still happens on a lot of drive-ins around the country. In the 90s, a lot of entrepreneurial drive-in owners, like the owner of the Transit, the owner of the Sunset in Western New York, started to get the idea that they could run first-run movies. And they started to get first-run movies, and the audiences started coming back. So it was no longer the 50s and 60s cheap B movies that they were showing. It was the same movies you'd get in the big theaters, the big closed theaters, but didn't have to leave your car. Drive-ins have kind of peaked out at 400 drive-ins throughout the country. There's drive-ins all over the world, actually. Some are starting to make a comeback. Some new ones are being built. Some old ones are being reconditioned. Drive-ins are adding screens. Like this drive-in's added 3 screens in the last 9 years. People are coming back to the drive-ins, and they're getting all the first-run big hits when they come out. Just every time one closes, people just want it reopened somewhere else. So what do I see happening? I think 400 is going to be the number for at least a decade. And if you're going to go out for the movies, you're going to do dinner and a movie, let's say you're going to go someplace and just grab a burger or something and go to a movie, you should just do it at the drive-in, because it's much better, it's less expensive, and you're helping out the drive-in. Go to a drive-in on a Saturday night in July. I don't care what Saturday it is, I don't care what drive-in it is, in July. If you can get into the concession stand after 9 o'clock when the line is out the door, you tell me. They're not extinct.